Testing, what is up? This is the first time using this microphone in this house. Please let me know if you can hear me okay. Currently on a plane on the tarmac. Wow, okay. I don't know if we've ever live streamed to a plane in the air. Are you still going to have internet when it hits the air? Or are you going to lose it? Good afternoon, Lord. Highland. Camille, Ryan, good afternoon. Hutan, nice to see you. Hope you guys are well. I'm feeling pretty good today. Been doing a lot of tidying around the house and stuff. I'm going to buy the Wi-Fi. Yeah, sometimes it's worth it on the plane to buy the Wi-Fi. You're half in a shadow. Yes, I haven't quite worked out where the light is going to be in this room. Do you know what? I haven't put on my main light. Let me do that. I have a lot more natural light in this room than we have in the last house, I guess. But my spotlight, I've still got some teething problems to figure out. So, cool. Audio tends to sometimes be a bit tinny from this mic, but it can be random. One of the, do you know what? I really think at some point we're going to invest in a new microphone. This one is This one's so-so, I guess. Anyway, good afternoon, welcome to the Army List Show. Thanks for being here. I hope you're having a good Sunday. Today we got 5 lists to look at. Normally we look at 4, but I kind of fucked up and basically ended up meaning that for some reason it didn't pop up that one of the lists submitted to me. So we're going to try and do 3 from members today. And then we're going to also... We're also going to do 2 from non-members. That's what I was looking for. I did just post about this a minute ago on Discord, and what's interesting is on Discord, I just saw this because I was looking after my daughter until like 5 minutes ago. On Discord, somebody just said, Soren, he won 3 games last night against Death Guard, Custodes, Ultramarines with a slightly modified version of the Blood Angels Commander list. Excited to use it in an ITC tournament. So, interesting to know that my list is winning games for other people as well. Interesting to find out what that is. Okay. I will be buying the Wi-Fi on my 6-hour. Yeah, how much is Wi-Fi on a flight these days? Because last time I went on, I'm sure it was only like $20, which seems reasonable. That was you, Soren? Hutan? That's you on Discord? So what did you change in my list? And which list are we talking about, I guess? Because are you talking about the list that I went 4-1 in the tournament in? Or the one that I've been running more recently with the Terminators? Anyway, cool. Let's start with Dirty Splodge then. This should be an interesting list. Okay. Wow, it just minimized everything. Cool. Here we go. June is awesome. I really want to see June. I don't know how I feel. I'm still not comfortable with the number of COVID cases here in Scotland. So I'm probably... I mean, it's mainly probably because my wife is pregnant, right? So, like, we have to be extra cautious. But, yeah, I mean, I really want to see June. I actually really like the book. I know a lot of people probably haven't read the book, but I really liked it. I must have read it, like, 20 years ago at this point. But, maybe even more, maybe 25, because I think I read it when I was at school. But, yeah, I really wanted to see the new Dune new movie. 80s movies are awesome. That's what we were talking about last night. I took out the Whirlwind and put in Vanguard Vets, basically. I think it was the list you used against Dark Angels recently. Alright, nice. So, yeah, I mean, you don't necessarily need a Whirlwind if you don't feel like you need it. I think I get value out of mine. I like the Whirlwind. Anyway, Dirty Splodge has a GT at the end of the month. So, hopefully that's next weekend and not this weekend. Otherwise, I've completely... Yeah, hopefully his GT's next weekend, and he would love some feedback on the list. Hopefully this is soon enough. I didn't see this comment until now. Alright, so there's a Blood Angels Flesh Tearers list. We have 2 extra relics. We're starting with 9 CP and 1998 points. And we have a Chapter Master who is Creationborn. He has a jump pack, he has a Master Crafted Weapon, Storm Shield, Thunder Hammer. Creationborn... I'm going to have to look that up, just I'm not 100% familiar with all the Flesh Tearers rules. Each time the Warlord declares a charge, you can't overwatch, and you can reroll the charge. Okay, so a Chapter Master who's going to get to reroll his charge, and he can't be overwatched or set to defend against. It's pretty decent. 180 points. Quite expensive, the Chapter Master, when you give him both the Storm Shield and the Thunder Hammer and a jump pack, right? We then have a Primaris Chaplain on a bike, who is Mantra of Strength, Canticle of Hate, Benediction of Fury, Master of Sanctity, Hero of the Chapter, and Wise Orator. Yes. So basically running the potential 4 damage Benediction of Fury, Canticle of Hate to give improved charge ranges, and Mantra of Strength for that 4 damage and extra attacks. And then the Sanguinary Priest, who is Chief Apothecary, Jump Pack, Teeth of Terra. So kind of the standard Sanguinary Priest that we're used to seeing. Okay, I like most of these HQ picks. Both these HQ picks are very aggressive. They don't... The first two anyway, like the Chapter Master and the Chaplain on the bike, these guys can be made so much more survivable. And I've been finding a lot of success in running my guys more... Like, I don't go for damage on my Chaplains or my Chapter Masters. I tend to go for survivability, because if they survive the entire game, they will do damage anyway, because they survived the entire game. So I think in 9th edition, surviving is very important. Holding objectives, doing secondaries, that sort of thing is very important. So I prefer the more survivable versions, but I don't think there's anything horrible with either of these two picks. Like, I think they're pretty decent. I would probably, if it was me though, I would probably run the Chaplain on the bike as the Warlord and give him the second Warlord trait, like probably Gift of Foresight or something to make him even more survivable. I'd probably run Armor Indomitus on one of them. I'd probably run Armor Indomitus on the Chaplain, and I'd probably run Angel's Artifice on the Chapter Master. And yes, they do a tiny bit less damage. You take the Thunder Hammer from 4 damage down to 3, but you move his toughness from 4 up to 5, and you give him an additional wound. And the Primaris Chaplain on the bike, you give him another additional wound. You give him that really nice Invuln save and a better normal save, and you get him reroll 1 hit, 1 wound, 1 save every turn. Is the general new warmth in the air coming through John's voice? Do you know what? As we get into October, in my old house, when on a Sunday at 4 o'clock, when we did these list shows, part of me is kind of dreading it, because I have to go sit in a freezing cold room for 2 hours. But no, today, I mean, it's pretty lovely actually. You've even got the sun coming in the window a little bit, and more natural light. So yes, I'm feeling very happy about things at the moment. Okay, so 3 decent HQ choices. I feel like I prefer them to be more survivable, but Flesh Tearers can be very offensive based, so that's fine. 3 squads of Incursors. I think Incursors are probably the best troop choice in general. I only own 1 squad of them myself. We actually talked last night a bit about how Steel Rain likes to run a squad of Assault Intercessors in reserve for 1 CP, and he thinks that he gets pretty good value out of them, sometimes even using like a Thunder Hammer on the Sergeant or something. So Incursors and Assault Intercessors, I think, are my favourite troops in 9th. I like Infiltrators too, don't get me wrong, but it feels like less and less people are going for deep strike tactics. So because of that, any Flesh Tearers being able to make a build with the Severer work. The Severer is a great chainsword, right? The Flesh Tearers Relic Severer. It's a chainsword. It replaces the Starter's chainsword with the following profile. On a 5+, the target suffers 1 mortal wound. So, I mean, that's pretty good on a 5+, right? Is a Mastercrafted Thunderhammer, which costs 20 points more, better than this? You know, to me it's actually pretty similar. I would maybe even prefer the Severer, just because on a Captain, what do you get? Like 4 attacks on the charge, 5 attacks. with Savage Echo, 6 attacks. You're going to get a couple of 5+s, so he's always going to do a couple of mortal wounds. I actually prefer the Severer to the Benediction of Fury. And the reason I do, I think Benediction of Fury only scores mortals on 6s, so quite often you can roll your hits and get no 6s and you didn't do any mortals. So I think I prefer that one, to be brutally honest. And you would save 20 points. You make this Chapter Master 100... Actually, 25 points for a Thunderhammer on a Chapter Master, I think. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's 25 points, actually. So we could get 25 points to put somewhere else. We then have Death Company, 1 Thunderhammer, a bunch of bolt guns and chainswords, a 5-man, another Death Company 5-man, just with bolt guns and chainswords. This seems strange to split the Death Company into 2 5s, but maybe there's a reason for it. We have our 2 Redemptors, Fragstorms, Onslaughts, Plasma on 1, Fragstorm, Heavy Flamer, Heavy Onslaught on the other. I'd go ahead and just make Macro Plasmas on both, Stormbolters on both, and I would really try and fit those rocket pods in, because the rocket pods are generally very good against Drukhari Raiders. It's 20 on the Chapter Master. Okay, thank you. So you could, if you did make that Chapter Master 20 points cheaper, you would have enough points to put the Macro Plasma on both and get the rocket pods on both. And the rocket pods are going to be very useful against Raiders. Opening up Raiders can be pretty difficult. -1, -2 AP is kind of ideal against them, and the rocket pods across 2 Dreadnoughts is going to give you a much easier way to open up the Raiders at long range, I guess. 2 Sanguinary Guard, a 4-man and a 5-man, all with swords. So I only think swords are best if you have Null Zone. If you don't have Null Zone, I think axes are now best. So, I mean, swords are fine, don't get me wrong, they're not bad, but yeah, the never-ending debate of swords versus axes, I like to mix my squads, and I think that's the best way to do it, like 4 axes, 4 swords, or something like that. I also don't like Sanguinary Guard, just 4-man strong. I feel like 4-man, they're not going to always kill what you need them to kill in 4s. I really think Sanguinary Guard work best in 7s through 9s. I'm trying to think how you could do that. I feel like you'd probably need to maybe merge these 2 Death Company together. Have like 8 Death Company. Maybe drop the Thunderhammer on this Chapter Master, so have 2 Thunderhammers and like 6 bolt gun and chainswords. Dropping 2 Death Company guys gives you like 50 points. I'd also drop the Vengeance Launcher and the Whirlwind. I know I haven't got to that yet, but I would definitely drop that. I don't think the Vengeance Launcher is very good. I think if you wanted Suppression Fire, you have more chance of getting good Suppression Fires, or guaranteed Suppression Fires, with the other launcher, the Castellan. So that would give you 60 points. So that's almost enough for 2 more Sanguinary Guard to maybe make one of the squads the 7, or maybe make a 6 and a 5. I definitely prefer a 6 and a 5 to a 4 and a 5. Quite a lot, actually. I know it's only 1 more model, but I feel like in terms of raw killing power, it actually probably helps a bit. We have 5 Hellblasters with Assault Plasmas, and we have the Whirlwind, and that kind of rounds out the list. Okay, this is a different type of Flesh Tearers list from what we normally see. What we normally see Flesh Tearers try and do in turn 1 is like overload with drop pods. Drop units inside drop pods, maybe like a Furlong Fury Death Company, and then a backed up Incursor charge. So this is definitely a bit different from what we see with Flesh Tearers. I mean, it feels reasonably well rounded in that we've got the 2 Redemptors and the Whirlwind. That's pretty good fire support. The Assault Blasters, Hell Blasters with the Sanguinary Priest is also pretty good fire support. I feel like the Sanguinary Guard are a little bit small. I feel like the Death Company would be better if it was one big squad, maybe. Or I'd be happy to lose a couple of models. Maybe even like 3 and go like 2 Thunderhammers, 5 Chainswords. I've not had a lot of success with 5-man Death Companies, and I've run them I've run both these loadouts, right? I've run them with just 5 guys with chainswords, and I've also just run them with 4 guys with chainswords on the Thunderhammer. I completely dropped the Death Company this edition. I don't run them at all now. I run Bolter and Scepters because they're 5 points cheaper, and I think they're better and more reliable. But if you want to make Death Company work, I don't think the way you make them work is 2 5-man squads. I think you have a large Death Company and use the threat of the Forlorn Fury potentially. And I think that's how Flesh Tearers tend to play anyway. Assault Hellblasters are okay. I mean, they're better in some other chapters. They're not the greatest for Blood Angels, but they're not bad. I also think... So... Yeah, I think that most of the killing in this list comes from the Sanguinary Guard. And I really don't like that only one Redemptor has the Macroplasma. I think to get value out of the Macroplasma, so you need to have both Redemptors with them, because if one Redemptor gets a bad roll, you know, like number of shots, 1, then you'd hope the other Redemptor would get like a 5 or something to balance it out. If you've just got one Macroplasma and you really need to do some damage to enemy armor, and you roll poorly with just one of them, well, you're fucked. So I think the right choice is to have 2 Macroplasmas on the Redemptors. And I'd be okay with one squad of Incursors becoming a squad of Assault Intercessors. I think that would be okay as well. And yeah, I mean, I would actually like one Infernal Pistol split between the 2 squads of Sanguinary Guard. The other thing to say is, if you don't want to change any of your HQ units, right, you're happy with what you've got here, and you're like, no, this is the loadouts I like, John, then you could still pay your 1 CP here for Angel's Exemplar, right? I'm pretty sure Flesh Tearers could take Angel's Exemplar. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. I don't see why they couldn't take it. Apparently I can't spell exemplar. Here we go. Use a strategy in a Blood Angels character. Oh, right. Oh no, if this model is from the Blood Angels or one of their specific types, this must be from Blood Angels Warlord traits. Yeah, okay, so although it says Blood Angels character here, this is just badly worded. It basically says afterwards that you can take you can use this on a Flesh Tearers. So you can take a second Warlord trait. It can only be if it is a Flesh Tearer, though, it can only be taken from the Flesh Tearer's Warlord trait. However, your first one can be taken from anything. So you could keep Creation Born technically as your second Warlord trait, and your first Warlord trait could be either Wrath of Rage, so you get unmodified hit rolls of 6s, score 1 additional hit. Merciless Butcher, each time the Warlord is selected to fight for every 5 enemy models within 3, get 1 additional attack. I feel like if I was going to take one of those 2, I'd probably take of Wrath of Rage, but you do get access to all the Space Marine ones as well, right? And maybe what would be good for your Creation Born Warlord would be you could give him a Feel No Pain on a 6. You could also give him like he's fighting with a Mastercrafted Thunderhammer, right? So the Mastercrafted Thunderhammer is -1 to hit. So you could give him, each time you make attacks against enemy characters, add 1 to your hit and wound roll. So you probably always be hitting and wounding on 2s. You could also maybe take Rites of War to grant some obsec for, I imagine, the Sanguinary Guard or the Death Company that are around him. And the other one that you could take, I suppose, is Imperium Sword. I know that Creation Born already lets you reroll charges, and Imperium Sword kind of does the same thing, but it does give you +1 strength and +1 attack. So if you were going to use the Severer as the weapon, which I think is definitely a possibility. If you use the Severer as a weapon, you could get an additional attack. So you could have 7 attacks where 5 pluses do mortal wounds. The advantage of the Severer is you hit on 2s. So you'd hit on 2s, you'd be strength 7 with +1 to wound. So you'd still wound pretty reliably, and 5 pluses do mortals. I mean, that's pretty nice. If you keep the Chapter Master as your Warlord, would Gift of Foresight of Artisan of War or Adamantium be a good set of choices? Yeah, it's just because he's Flesh Tearers, I guess he's not allowed to pick the Blood Angels ones, right? So he can't pick Artisan of War or Gift of Foresight, unfortunately. But you can still do something with the Warlord, the Space Marine ones, and the Flesh Tearer ones that would be pretty nice. If you're charging into the fray, the extra attack for every 5 guys would be handy. That's very true. If you're going to use that Severer Chainsword and you're going to charge into a bunch of guys, it only generates up to 3 additional attacks. And yeah. I guess the thing is, you get 6 attacks normally, right? So the other Flesh Tearer one, where you on unmodified rolls of 6 score additional hits. If you get 6 attacks, then almost this Warlord trait almost is just +1 attack, right? Because normally you're going to be fighting with 6 attacks in turn 3, so you're usually going to roll 1/6 on average. So that's just +1 attack. So at that point, rather than taking of Wrath of Rage, you would probably just take Imperium Sword, because that gives you +1 attack and +1 strength, and it's guaranteed. So that's my opinion. But I mean, overall, let's do a little bit of scoring on this list. Let me see how I'm feeling. So we've got the 3 units of OBSEC, and they're all incursors. And incursors are great, so we're going to start on 8.5. We're also going to do quite good at anti-horde clear in this list, and there's a few reasons why. I mean, we've got 9 Sanguinary Guards, that's 18 bolter shots. We've got those Hellblasters, that's like 15 shots. We've got the 2 Dreadnoughts. I really prefer the Storm Bolters over the Frag Storms. Storm Bolters have a little bit more range, and to me they seem like a little bit more reliable, but I mean, it's minor. And then I guess the Incursors as well. So Anti-Horde is probably like an 8.5. This list's pretty okay against enemy hordes. Enemy armor then. Your Chapter Master's pretty strong with his Master-Crafted Thunderhammer, but we have talked about some ways that you could maybe make him better. The Primaris Chaplain on a bike with Benediction of Fury is pretty decent as well. My experience of Benediction of Fury is it doesn't do very many mortal wounds. Like 1 mortal wound per turn, maybe if you're lucky. So I don't rate it as highly, maybe as some other people do. We also have the 1 Thunderhammer in the Death Company. So far we've got 3 4 damage weapons. Sorry, 3 3 damage weapons. We then have the 2 Dreadnoughts bringing in another 3. And that's it. So we only have 6 3 damage or more weapons. So that part of the list I'm not super keen on. I like more than that. I usually say we need to aim for about 10 3 damage or above weapons. And it's not the end of the world if you don't have them. You just might have some problems if you fight like a Dreadnought heavy list or a Death Guard list. You might just be at a point where like you just don't have the damage output that you need. And so against enemy armor, I'm probably going to say this is like an 8. Flesh Tearers do have a way to do 1 additional damage, right? How is it they do that again? It's when they score 6s or something? I forget what it's called. It's not... It's probably next to the bit about Red Thirst. Flesh Tearers, Fury Within. On an unmodified roll of 6, improve the armor penetration. Oh, it's the aura around Seth. Alright, we don't have Seth in this. So we just get 1 additional point of AP. Do you know what? Getting that additional point of AP on an unmodified 6 as an Assault Doctrine really makes me think that axes are actually really good on Flesh Tearers as well. So the fact that none of the Sanguinary Guard have axes here is probably like a little bit of a misstep, because if you get 6s with the axes, then they're potentially -4 anyway. So -4 is usually fine. You're going to push people into invulnerable saves, or you're going to push them onto no save on -4 pretty quickly, right? Okay. how do I say, something like 8. Mobility-wise then, Hellblasters aren't mobile, Redemptors aren't mobile. Everything else is pretty mobile. Arguably the Whirlwind isn't super mobile, but I don't really think it needs to be. So probably like an 8 as well. And then specializations, gonna fall a little bit down here. We have the ability for the enemy to fight last. We do not have any denies. We have a good number of units for actions. We're kind of lacking in 3 damage weapons. We're good on CP. We're starting with 9 here, so I definitely would spend 1 and upgrade your Chapter Master with a second Warlord trait for sure. I think starting with 8 CP is more than enough. Some Infernal Pistols can cheaply set off the lack of 3 damage weapons. I'd agree with that 100%, Zacharis. Like an Infernal Pistol in the Sanguinary Guard. I really think you have to drop a couple of Death Company guys in this list, and add a second Thunderhammer to the Death Company, and I'd probably drop the Thunderhammer off the Chapter Master and give him that Severer to let him do some mortal wounds. I get that second macro in, so I save the 10 points on the Whirlwind Launcher. I think this list has it's got pretty good potential, but it just needs a little bit of work yet. So I think we'll go with like I guess you lose a point because you don't have any denies. You lose a point because you don't have enough 3 damage weapons. I think everything else is good, right? So I think we come in at like 41 on this list. I don't buy pistols on Death Company. Sorry, did I say pistols on Death Company? I think I meant a Thunderhammer. If I was running Death Company, which I don't run them currently, but if I'm running Death Company, I will run them with Thunderhammers. Usually a ratio of something like, for every 4 models we have 1 Thunderhammer. It doesn't have to be precise, like you could do 2 Thunderhammers, 5 Chainswords or something like that, but something in that ratio. The reason I like the Infernal Pistols on the Sanguinary Guard is usually my Sanguinary Guard are near the Warlord, so that means hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s. So usually you're guaranteed to hit with Infernal Pistols, and then they're basically Meltaguns at short range, and Meltaguns can do some brilliant work, especially if you have Null Zone in your list. This list obviously doesn't have Null Zone. You don't have to have Null Zone. It's a nice tool to have, but I mean, you don't have to have it. Yeah, I mean, the problem in this list, I guess, with the Death Company is I don't think a 5-man Death Company Forlorn Fury does much. I don't even know if I would actually start this Death Company on the board. I'd maybe make it a 7-man Death Company, 2 Thunderhammers, 5 Chainsword guys. You do have your Chaplain on the bike with Canticle of Hate, so you can get that +2 to charge when they arrive from Deep Strike. So I might even arrive the Death Company from Deep Strike and then go into some enemy armor or something with a +2 to charge. That's probably how I would be using this. So I don't think this is a bad list. I think 41 is a pretty fair score. And I guess we'll move on to James Fisher's list next. 2 Thunderhammers, 3 Infernal Pistols, and 10-man squad, Chainswords, pistols with the rest, a Shield of Sanguinius them, and generally have my Death Company still left in turn 3. Yeah, I mean, that's probably fine to do. Not many people Shield of Sanguinius Death Company. I guess not too many people actually run the Sanguinius powers or the Sanguinary Discipline powers. So maybe that's just something that people are starting to do a little bit more. I guess looking at the Sanguinary powers. Alright, James Fisher. I have a good success with this list so far. I was running the same list with a tanky bike Chaplain and 1 more Death Company Marine, but I wasn't feeling the lack of deny, so I swapped out the Librarian Dread, and it fit in well and plays off the Tech Marine well. Okay, so the Librarian Dread, who has Unleash Rage, Shield of Sanguinius Wings, he is a Chief Librarian, he is a Meltagun, he is the Warlord, and he has Gift of Foresight and Iron Resolve. Okay, I mean, personally I don't like Gift of Foresight on the Librarian Dreadnought because he doesn't have an invulnerable save, but I mean, I guess if he wants to Shield of Sanguinius himself, then he has the invulnerable save, but I think you get more value off a gift of foresight off of a character that's got like a really strong and vulnerable save, like a 4-up invuln save, or in my case, when my chapter master has armor and dominus, a 3-up invuln save. If you have a 3-up invuln save and you have 1 free reroll every turn, you're gonna survive pretty effectively. Alright, we then have the Primaris Tech Marine, Chapter Master, Master of the Forge, not Chapter Master, sorry, Chapter Command, Master of the Forge, and Quake Bolts. So I like this a lot. The Quake Bolts on the Tech Marine are pretty reliable on a 2+, and 24 inches, and he can advance and still shoot them if you need to because his gun's assault. And also he heals a model for 3 wounds every turn. I like this Primaris Tech Marine a lot. And he also gets a lot of attacks in combat. He doesn't hit very often because his weapons go 3, but he does get a lot of attacks. Troop-wise, 1 squad of Incursors, 2 squads of Intercessors, 1 with auto bolt rifles, 1 with Stalkers, and I mean, that makes sense. I guess the Stalkers are going to sit in the backfield, hold down an objective, do some pop shots. Auto bolt rifles are going to push forward. We then have 5 Blade Guard veterans, just a standard 5-man squad. We have the Death Company Marines with jump packs, 7 swords. I'm assuming he means 7 chain swords and 2 thunderhammers. Like I said, almost a 4-in-1 ratio just a minute ago. We have Librarian Dreadnought, 2 Volkites, the Gravflux, and the Drill at 220 points. We have a Redemptor Dreadnought times 2 actually, Storm Bolters, Icarus Rocket Paws, Macroplasmas, Onslaughts, and a Redemptor Fists. And then we have a Sanguinary Guard, and it's 2 Infernal Pistols, 5 axes, 3 swords. 5 axes, 3 swords, alright, so slightly leaning towards axes, and then the Whirlwind. 125 points. D3 weapons is 15. Is it as much as that? Is it? I guess 2 Infernal Pistols. The 2 Dreadnoughts times 2, that gives 6. The other Dreadnought times 2, that gives 8. I guess he's got Melt again, so that would be 9. 2 more Thunderhammers, 11. Primaris Tech Marine has 1, so that's 12. And then Librarian Dreadnought arguably has 2. Yeah, okay. A lot of 3 damage weapons in this list. Not sure we get a return with Stalkers. Yeah, I mean, I guess the Stalkers are just there to hold a backfield objective, right? But you're right, I don't think you get much return from them. What are they like? Heavy 1? Is it? Strength 4 minus 2, 2 damage? Something like that? I definitely feel like they're just there to hold an objective, right? There's not too much else to say about the Stalkers, really. Okay. So I guess this list has been well thought out in that we've got a Librarian with ways to buff the Sanguinary Guard, shield them, wings them. The Death Company that can be shielded. Sorry, not wings them, wings himself. Shielded, buffed as well. The Tech Marine's there to keep the 4 Dreadnoughts arguably healthy. Blade Guard veterans are very solid for moving forward. The Whirlwind as well. Because it's a battalion, you've got 3 troop choices. Yeah, I mean, this is a solid enough list. Librarian Dreadnought and Tech Marine is the only troop choice. HQ choices. I don't know. I like the Chaplain and the Chapter Master a lot better than Librarian Dreadnought right now. I guess the reason to take Librarian Dreadnought and have him Chief Librarian, he gives you 2 denies, which is decent. With Iron Resolve, he's on 9 wounds and he's got 6-up Shrug, which is also decent. But he was running the same list with a tanky Bite Chaplain. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sold on Soul Warden being really popular now, or really strong now. How many CP did he say? How many CP that he's going to start with? No. 1, 2. He's going to just have spent 2 CP before the game starts. Oh, Quake Bolts, 3. Is that right? Yeah, like 3 CP. So he would have 9 CP, which is quite a lot. I tried Blood Boil other than Wings, but it's very nice to be able to move the Library and Dreadnought to safety or to get pushed in. Yeah, Blood Boil for me, James, didn't feel super reliable, right? I mean, any psychic power can be unreliable, but any psychic power that you have to make the cast and then roll additional dice is going to be even more unreliable. So I prefer to have Wings over Blood Boil. I think if I played Mephiston again, and unfortunately I don't think I'm going to play him again for a little while because I'm doing the tournament, I think the powers I would take are those 3 that you have there. Unleash Rage, Shield of Sanguinius, and Wings, because I think you need them. You want him to be mobile. You want him to be able to shield things, including himself, and you want to unleash Rage on the Death Company and the Sanguinary Guard, or even your Blade Guard veterans will do pretty well from Unleash Rage, right? I liked all those things. The troop choices feel to me kind of fine, but if it was up to me, if this was my list and money was no object, I would run 2 Incursors and 1 Assault Intercessors, because I feel like you're pushing forward with 1 squad anyway. You're going to do more damage with Assault Intercessors than you are with Auto Bolt Rifles, regular Intercessors. And you can reserve your Assault Intercessors. That's what Steel Rain was saying last night. Like, just reserve a squad of 5 Assault Intercessors, you know? They can jump out and jump in and they can fight twice and stuff. So, you can get like 50 attacks, and if they're coming in from the edge of the board and they can just make a charge, feels like they would do a lot more damage. Like, even if they don't fight twice, it's 26 attacks. So auto bolt rifles are like what? 15 shots from auto bolt rifles from a squad. It's 3 shots per rifle, right? So 15 shots hitting on 3s, 10 hits, wounding let's say on 4s. So you basically make the enemy make like 5 saves with no AP. Whereas if it was chain swords, if it's turn 1 or 2, it's probably an additional 5 attacks with -1 AP, or 5 more saves they have to make with -1. And if it's turn 3 or 4, it's probably 10 more saves they have to make -2. Yeah, no problem, Odsod. I'll add it to the queue. There's like a reason. If you you see everyone that's chatting with the green name, these guys are channel members. That means that they have clicked the join button under the channel and become a member. Channel members get priority in the queue. So, but I'll add you. I think the queue time for channel members is like 2 or 3 weeks. The queue time for non-members at the moment is like 6 to 8 weeks. So that's just how it works. I would run probably 2 squads of Incursors and 1 squad of Assault Intercessors. I think I really like the idea of reserving the Assault Intercessors. I think they're a cheap unit, 95 points, they get a lot of chainsword attacks, you reserve them for 1 CP, they're only like 6 power level I think. Do you know what, I will check. So typically what that means is it might actually be 5. Troops. Assault Intercessors. Alright, so they're 5. So 4 attacks on the Sergeant, 3 attacks on the regular guys, and then potentially an additional 2 attacks per model when charging. So you can get 26 attacks on these guys for 95 points, and you could pay 2 CP to fight twice. So potentially you can get 52 attacks out of a cheap squad of Assault Intercessors. Is anyone running old-fashioned assault squads with jump packs and the fast attack slot? I would guess not, Matt. We kind of went over them on one of the tier list videos, and I think we said that they are trash. I could be wrong. What are they? Fast attack, you just said. Fast attack. We put them in the crap tier. So we didn't... We just said they're crap right now. They're the top of the crap, but they are crap. I think the problem with the regular Assault Marines is they don't get any attacks. They get 1 attack. So if you give them like a Meltagun, for example, which was a cool thing we used to be able to do, give them Meltaguns, like 2 guys in the squad had Meltaguns. But then if you end up charging, you just have 1 attack, and I feel like with just 1 attack you can't do anything. It's just, they're just trash. Okay, so the core of this list, I guess, is your Tech Marine and three Dreadnoughts, 2 Redemptors and Leviathan. Which is pretty solid. The Death Company and the Sanguinary Guard both are decent sizes. The Whirlwind is good. The Blade Guard Veterans, the troop choices, there's maybe some minor improvements. I dislike that we don't have too many rerolls, but I mean that's not the end of the world. And I guess when I say rerolls, I mean like the Sanguinary Guard potentially getting rerolls, or the Death Company. But I mean, with the Librarian Dreadnought, you can use Wisdom of the Ancients. So I guess if you're going to pop Wisdom of the Ancients a bunch of times throughout the game and turn on like the hit rerolls, whatever that's called, then I'm probably okay with that. I wonder if you would, if I was you, I would put Soul Warden onto the Primaris Tech Marine. Pay the 1 CP and give him Soul Warden, and then that protects all 3 of your Dreadnoughts against mortal wounds. So you come up against any sort of army or that's going to do mortal wounds, like a Psychic army or someone running all those stupid Volkite Contemptors, then your Dreadnoughts are protected against mortal wounds. I mean, well, not protected so much, just that they have a 5-up shrug. And that's probably where I would go with this. But overall, I think it seems pretty solid. So let me put down some scoring, and we'll have some other thoughts about it. So 3 troop choices. 1 is in cursors. I kind of want to give you an 8. I don't really rate regular intercessors all that strongly. The Stalker bolt rifles, you don't get enough shots to do damage, and the auto bolt rifles, they're okay. But I think that reserving a squad of assault intercessors sounds like a much better option. And yeah, I just think it sounds like a much better option. Okay, anti-horde. Well, the 3 Dreadnoughts are going to do quite a bit of clear on horde, right? You got the Whirlwind that can help with that. You also have like 5 Angelus Bolters. I guess you've got the auto bolt rifles, which will help on hordes. You've got incursors. I think anti-horde is fine, maybe even stronger than that last list, so probably like a 9. Anti-monster infantry, so you obviously did a bit of thought about this and gave yourself 15 3 damage weapons, so that is really good. 15 3 damage weapons means if you come up against something that is -1 damage, you're still going to do a lot of damage against that list. You're in a very good place, I guess, with it. You also have a good size Sanguinary Guard, Death Company, and Blade Guard Veterans. So I think enemy monsters, it's probably like a 9.5. Potentially the only way you would get this to a 10 at this point would be to have Null Zone, I guess. But you don't need Null Zone. Like I said, it's a nice tool to have. I'd always take a Power Fist Sergeant for the ABR intercessors. What do you mean ABR? Auto bolt rifle. Okay, I mean I would I'd be okay with a power sword as well, Highland Phoenix, just because a power sword is only 5 points and it's now +1 strength, so with the Blood Angels +1 to wound, it's in a pretty decent place. And power swords are -3, so the second we get into Assault Doctrine, you're on -4. It makes it pretty difficult to save. I like that. I think if it was me though in this list, I would be running. I'd be trying to run 1 assault intercessors and 1 regular. Yeah, I think I would be trying to run the assault intercessors. I think that would help quite a bit. Okay. Mobility then. What's not mobile? I mean, the Dreadnoughts aren't mobile. The intercessors aren't mobile. I suppose the Tech Marine isn't mobile. But that's it. And like the Dreadnoughts arguably don't really need to be super mobile, right? Like they're just they're dreadnoughts, so why would they need to be mobile? And I guess your librarian dreadnought though is very mobile in that he can move 22 inches of a turn with a little bit of luck, I guess, because you have to pass that psychic test, right? Okay, so mobility is maybe like an 8. And then specialization, right? So we have the fight last. We have 2 denies because we've got the chief librarian there. We have plenty of units from actions. We have 15 3-damage weapons. And we have 9 command points, but I would spend one of them, I think, for sure. Yeah, I think I would spend one of them for sure so that we can include Soul Warden, right? Like, I think that is pretty great to have. So I think you've watched my videos too often, is what I'm thinking here, because I don't think I've scored anyone 10 before in specialization, but you've kind of covered it all. Fight last, denies, units for actions. If you make this, do you know what? I'll give you a 10, but I feel like it should be a 9.5 because you need to make this swap where you have 2 Phobos troops. If you have 2 Phobos troops, then I'm like very confident in your ability to do units for actions. So we'll give you a 10, but it's maybe supposed to be 9.5. But I think if you did have the 2, I think if you did have the 2 incursors, then it would be the 10. Okay, so yeah, I think this is a good list, James. I think you're gonna have to pop a bunch of CP on Wisdom of the Ancient for rerolls, which I think if you know that you're gonna have to do that and you're okay with it, then I think that's fine. It is nice to see a list that doesn't have a ton of characters, because you can win games without a ton of characters. Give them a 9.7. We don't typically do that, but sure, 9.75. There you go then. You scored me a 10, but I'd more 3-damage weapons and 4 denies. Okay, so we did score someone else a 10 in specialization before. Okay, cool. Then this is going to be the highest list today, or this is going to be the list to beat, I guess, because 44.25 is actually a very, very reasonable score. Or let me put in a color we can actually see it. Okay. Yeah. Alright, cool. Nice list, James. Hopefully we said something that would maybe... Did I mention that I prefer the Stormbolters? I think I did. We also mentioned Wisdom of the Ancient, the Soul Warden. Yeah, I think that's about that's about all I can give on that list. It's a pretty solid list, it looks like. Cool. Okay. All my CP is pretty much used for Wisdom and Death Company pre-game move stuff. Okay, fair enough. Alright, we are going to move on to Mega Miniatures next. And Mega just joined the community a few weeks ago, actually. And I missed his list, so this is why we were doing 3 members lists today. I don't know where it went. For whatever reason, YouTube didn't notify me when he posted it. Running this next week, I'll add in Soul Warden, swap troops, and report back. You could give the Blade Guard Sergeant, Quake Bolts, and the Tech Marine Armor Indomitus. I mean, if the Tech Marine's going to be hanging out with the 3 vehicles, Highland Phoenix, I'd say he's pretty safe. Even if, I mean, the Tech Marine saves on 2s as well. So, even if the enemy have snipers, if you save on 2s, you're probably okay. Not that many people have that many snipers, I guess. Alright, Mega Miniatures, excited to join the Blood Angels Commander community. I also love your thoughts on my latest army list. If it helps, my thinking is that each squad of Blade Guard would ride an Impulsor, and the squad with 5 would be joined by a Judiciar. The Librarian would also join the Sanguinary Guard. Thanks. Alright, perfect. So it's a 9 CP, 1999 points battalion, and this is also Flesh Tearers. So 2 Flesh Tearers lists in one stream. Interesting. Okay, so Librarian, who is Might of Heroes, Null Zone, and Psychic Fortress. He is a Chief Librarian, and he has a jump pack. This is how I like to run this Librarian. I think he's pretty good. I sure do wish our tanks were in a better place. I think a lot of people wish our tanks were in a better place, Martin. We don't see tanks very often. I'm going to run a tank at the Grand Tournament I'm going to, though. And it's going to be a big tank. I'm going to make that list this week, I think. We then have a Primaris Chaplain on a bike who has the Artisan of War and the Mantra of Strength and the Gift of Foresight and the Canticle of Hate. He's also running Adamantium Mantle on this guy so he can shrug on 5s. He is the Master of Sanctity so we can cast 2 litanies per turn. He also has Armor Indomitus. Surprisingly, he doesn't have Wise Orator, right? He has Gift of Foresight and Artisan of War. Yeah, he doesn't have Wise Orator, so he's casting 2 litanies, but he is very survivable. Just what's annoying, I guess, with that character is, I guess if you want to cast Canticle of Hate, you almost want to spend the 2 CP and just guarantee it off. That's a fortress, not a tank. Yeah, maybe it's a fortress. Okay. The Librarian is exactly how I like to run my Librarian. I think it's a very strong combination, and the Chaplain is pretty great, except you just have to be aware your litanies aren't going to be 100% reliable. We then have troops, Assaults, Intercessors, Infiltrators, and Intercessors, and I guess this is similar to the last list. I feel like it would be stronger if there were 2 squads of Phobos units, but sometimes that just doesn't fit in a list. So if that doesn't fit, you just have to work around it. So this seems fine enough. I hope there's room on the tournament table. I have my insider said that this tournament is going to be very, very light on terrain. So if it's going to be very light on terrain, then I think the super heavy tank should be kind of interesting. There should be nowhere to hide from the super heavy. I mean, sure, the super heavy tank can't hide, but typically it can't anyway. We then have Blade Guard Veterans. So this is a 5-man with Volkite Pistol, and then we have a 6-man with no Volkite Pistol. Okay, we have a Death Company with 3 Thunder Hammers and 2 Chainswords. We have the Judiciar, who is a hero of the chapter, and he's got that Creation Born so that you cannot overwatch against him and he can reroll charges. He's also wearing Artificer armor, and I think we see this kind of now and again. I don't like Artificer armor. I think it's a very weak relic. Like, it just gives you a 2-up save and a 5-up invuln, which is just like Terminator armor, I guess. I mean, I guess it's okay. Maybe you want to Angel Sacrifice at some point with the Judiciar. Are you going to try the list before the tournament? I'd love to see it. I might, I guess. I'm playing Tau tomorrow night, so it might be fun to play it against that. Just as a fun list and not tell people I'm taking it as a tournament list. Artificer armor, it's a strange one. Like, normally I would say to people like Armor Indomitus is going to be a lot better, you know, the additional wound is better, etc. But I guess he already has Armor Indomitus in this list, so he's going to take Artificer armor. I think when we talked about this before, actually, we said, why not just take Adamantium Mantle on the Judiciar? But he's got that in this list as well. So at that point, maybe what I would do on the Judiciar is just take Iron Resolve, give him an extra wound and give him a 6-up shrug. Because part of Artificer armor is, once the Judiciar is in combat, he's got that special rule. It's called Blade Master or something. I forget the name of it, but it means that when he's in combat, blade parry. When he's in combat, Blade Master, I think, is a skill from Dota 2. Blade parry is the 4-up and Vun save, right? So typically, that you said the Judiciar is going to be inside an Impulsor. When he comes out, he's going to move 3 inches because you can disembark 3. Then he's going to move 6. So he's coming out 9 inches from your Impulsor, and then he's charging with a reroll charge. So arguably, he's going to be in combat. So if he's going to be in combat, he's going to have a better save than the Artificer armor is going to give you. So why not take just a +1 wound and a shrug or something? Is that not more valuable? That's my opinion on the if you're trying to make the Judiciar more survivable, I'd probably do armor and Dominus first and then some sort of shrug second. I prefer both of those options over the Artificer armor. Hey Chief, how are you? It's been a little while. I'm in my new house. I'm very happy. I'm very warm actually, which is nice because my old house was never warm on a Sunday. So chilling, enjoying the stream today. Thanks for popping by. Artificer armor has its place, but not on a model that is a 4++ in melee and is primarily a melee model. Yes, Mark, exactly how I think. Big CP invested on the Judiciar too. Maybe just take the Whirlwind. I mean, that's something to discuss. Some people. I don't dislike the Judiciar. I mean, he is what, 40 points cheaper than a Whirlwind, so I mean 40 points is 2 company veterans. That's not a bad choice, you know. Good afternoon, Hydra, how you doing? We are looking at a 7-man Sanguinary Guard next then, all axes, and I guess because he's Flesh Tearers, all axes probably makes sense, right? Because on 6s he gets that additional point of AP, so you just want the additional strength, so you're just wounding more effectively. So while Blood Angels, I feel axes and swords 50-50 split. With Flesh Tearers, I'm probably on board with this. All axes is probably the best choice. We then have 2 squads of Eliminators. The first squad has the Sergeant with a bolt carbine, so they can move, shoot, move. And I guess the other 2 guys have the las fusils. The second squad has everybody with just sniper rifles. So that's kind of I don't want to say it's a mistake, but it's kind of a mismatch, right? Like, we've talked a bit about this on the channel. If you want to be successful with snipers, you either need to be running probably 2 squads of Eliminators or like a squad of Eliminators and a Phobos Captain next to each other. Because 1 squad of Eliminators typically doesn't kill all that much. You will maybe kill something now and again with them, but if you're trying to snipe enemy characters, then it's going to be difficult to do that effectively with just 3 shots, right? So you've got 3 shots hitting on 2s. Let's say even on a good day you hit them all, you wound on 3s, so you probably drop 1 at that point, so the enemy make 2 saves, they probably pass 1, so you probably, 1 squad of snipers maybe does 2 damage to an enemy model per turn. So over the course of a game, they can maybe do 10 damage. Now, I think for snipers to be effective, you need to be sniping off a character a turn, really, and making the enemy worrying about where their characters go. So 1 squad of snipers doesn't do that. I do like the Eliminators with the las fusils, though. Like, I think if they're in cover and they're on a 1-up save, they can be generally very difficult to shift, and the las fusils have very good range and they have reliable damage. I like the las fusils a lot. I would run 2 squads with las fusils for sure, but I don't know if I would run 1 squad of las fusils and 1 squad of bolt snipers. I'd put this 1 squad of bolt snipers like potentially for swapping something out, and it's 75 points. Maybe if you dropped 1 Blade Guard Veteran, which is 35 points, that gives you 111 points. 111 points, I feel like we're very close to getting something great into this list. You could even swap out the Infiltrators for Incursors, so that gives you... And Incursors are going to be better again for Flesh Tearers in combat. So that would give you 125 points. What can you do with 125 points? Well, you could have that 3-man Bolter and Scepter squad that I rate really, really highly. And that would, they'd be able to do a lot of damage. We then have a Whirlwind, and then following up, we have 2 Impulsors with the Shield Domes. In Flesh Tears, I'd take the Chapter Champion and Martial Exemplar over the Judiciar if you already have the Whirlwind. Yeah, I mean, you're probably right. The Judiciar with the Whirlwind is possibly overkill. You're really pushing for the enemy to fight last. And 2 transports feels like a big investment. I get that transports are ablative wounds, and they keep your models alive, so the enemy ends up shooting transports, but 250 points in transports, I tend to that's an 1/8 of your army as just transports, and I don't remember, but I feel like an Impulsor has like a Stormbolter on it or something. Like it's gonna do 0 damage, right? Dedicated transport, Impulsor. Oh, it's got 2 Stormbolters. Still, you're gonna end with what? Either like 4 or 8 bolter shots each turn. It's really not going to do any damage whatsoever. I would rather, I think, and this is just me, I would rather foot slog 1 squad of your Blade Guard. Like when I say foot slog, they're just walking across the board, and I would spend 100. I would remove 1 transport and fill it with, again, Bolter and Scepters. They're a great unit. And because you've got the Whirlwind there already, maybe you might even be better replacing the Judiciar with like an Apothecary, right? Because you already have the ability for the enemy to fight last. So if you had the ability to keep your Blade Guard alive and revive them, would that be slightly stronger? I mean, the Judiciar isn't bad. I mean, he's got a very nice weapon. He's making the enemy fight last in 2 places on the map could be super strong as well. Actually, it wouldn't even need to be generally just a regular Apothecary. You could actually run a Sanguinary Priest without a jump pack. You could just run a Sanguinary Priest for how many points is a Sanguinary Priest these days? Because you only have 2 HQ so far, right? Sanguinary Priest, 90 points, so about 10 points more than an Apothecary. And I mean, that gives you the ability to get your Sanguinary Guard and also your Blade Guard veterans into Assault Doctrine before turn 3, which is pretty nice. I know if there is a big difference if you're in Assault Doctrine and you make those charges. Like, it might not sound that much on paper, but +1 attack for every model and an additional -1 AP on every hit. I mean, that means if your Sanguinary Guard do make like a turn 2 charge and you've managed to Blood Chalice them, they're potentially already going to be on -3 or -4 axes, which is generally very nice. I really like redundancy in list. Judiciar in the Whirlwind isn't a bad idea. Yeah, I mean that's true. Sometimes you need to shoot the Whirlwind at something to take them off an objective. The Judiciar is generally going to be charging though, right? If him and the Blade Guard veterans are inside an Impulsor, you imagine they're charging. So it's only the counter charge that Judiciar is going to be needed for, and at that point, I kind of feel like Temper Mortis is only a 3-inch range. If people are smart, I guess that's why like a lot of people take Selfless Valor on the Judiciar, but I guess Flesh Tearers can't take that, so that's a tough one. I feel like Selfless Valor makes a big difference in the Judiciar. Just being able, because something to note is when you heroically intervene, you don't need to finish with an engagement range. So basically, if the enemy move, they're within 6 inches of you, you can make a heroic intervention, but you could just move like 4.8 inches. You could stay out with engagement range. And the reason to do that with the Judiciar is because then you kind of protect them, and you make the enemy fight last, because they're now within 3 inches of you. So the Judiciar, I'm not. Yeah, there's some redundancy there, but it wouldn't be. The redundancy isn't as high as it would be if it was Selfless Valor, right? Okay, so I'd probably have to. If this was me, I'd have to lose one of the transports. I think some people run multiple transports. I think that unfortunately impulsors are really expensive, right? If you compare them to Dakari Raiders, who have like las cannons on their transports basically and are like 30 or 40 points cheaper, and they also have a built-in invulnerable save, I think impulsors are kind of overcosted. I would remove one impulsor because I don't think it's a great choice. I would also probably remove an Eliminator squad again. I think that's a tough thing to make work. At that point, you're almost able to do a Redemptor Dreadnought if you want, Bolter Interceptors if you want. I also think Flesh Tearers are more aggressive than this, so Incursors are probably going to be better than Infiltrators and Intercessors. And I'd get the Infernal Pistol into the Sanguinary Guard. Alright, let's talk a little bit of scoring. Okay. Obsec. We've got 3 Obsec units, but only 1 Phobos, so we're going for an 8. Anti-Horde. We really lack firepower in this list in terms of like being able to deal with like hordes. I mean, there's a splattering of bolters and stuff like that, but there's really nothing major, so I think it's like a 6.5 for anti-horde. Anti-vehicle monster, well, 3 damage weapons. We have the two Laz Fusils, arguably the Judiciar Sword because it is mortals, 3 Thunderhammers, so that gives us 6, and then I guess the Crozius, and then the Librarian, so like 7.5, 3 damage weapons, which is pretty low. 2 giant squads of Blade Guard, protected and impulsors though was pretty nice. It's hard to argue with that. When they come out, they'll do like a lot of damage. The Sanguinary Guard are good. The Eliminators are a little bit mismatched, I think, and our troop choices. So I think anti-vehicle monsters maybe like an 8.5. Mobility then. 2 of our troops aren't mobile. I guess the Eliminators and Judiciar aren't. Well, the Eliminators aren't immobile, but we've got the Impulsors making the Blade Guard mobile, so it's probably similar, like an 8. And then we've got 2 ways to fight last, so that's good. We have 2 denies because we're the Chief Librarian. We have 3 units for actions. We only have 8 3 damage weapons, and our CP starting on is 9. So our CP is pretty great as well. So I think this is actually maybe like a 9 here. Yeah. I think so. I think that the main thing, if this was me, I would try and have some more damage output against monsters. Oh, I must have mistyped that. I didn't say 9.5 against enemy armor, did I? What did I didn't say 9.5 against monsters and armor for this list, surely not. What did I say? Someone paying attention in chat? I'm drawing a blank. Because you've got the 2 squads of Blade Guard veteran coming out, the Death Company, the Sanguinary Guard, but lack of 3 damage weapons. Yeah, maybe I said 8.5, did I? I typed 9.5. Could have happened. I think that makes more sense. Okay. Cool. Alright, so hopefully Mega can catch this on the replay. I don't think I've seen him in the chat. And let's move on then. List number 4 for today is Holy. Alright, so making my list here, we want to bring it to a tournament level while still running a lot of units that I like. I like the Bladeguard Veteran and Judicar, also trying out Eliminators over Company Vets after hearing Quakebolt's tech in another one of your videos. Okay, so we're back to Blood Angels. Cool. And we're at 1997 points and we have 6 CP, and we are in a battalion with 2 extra relics and an Angel's Ascendant. Right, so we have the captain on the bike with Gift of Foresight, Angel's Artifice. He's a chapter master. He has Rights of War and a Storm Shield and a Thunderhammer. Okay. So he's Toughness 6 chapter master. I think it might be better to have Adamantium Mantle on that chapter master. I prefer it. That was my older build that I used to run with Angel's Artifice, giving them plus 1 wound, plus 1 toughness, and the 2-up save. But I think Armor Indomitus actually gives you more value here. In most situations, I think Armor Indomitus gives you more value. I guess against Toughness 5 weapons, or Toughness 6 weapons, it's slightly less value. Or Strength 6 and Strength 5, I mean. Primaris Chaplain on a bike, Mantra of Strength, Canticle of Hate. These seem to be the standard litanies that everyone's running at the moment, and the Benediction of Fury. And he has Wiserator. So this time we're making our litanies a little bit more successful. Great. And then we have our Sanguinary Priest. I think we've almost seen a carbon copy of this list already today. Who is the Chief Apothecary, and he's a Selfless Healer, but he is running Armor Indomitus. And I've talked about this as well. I think it's a waste to give this Sanguinary Priest something to make him survivable. He should never be in a position where he could be targeted or fought or shot at or anything like that. If he is, you've got a problem that I don't know if Armor Indomitus is going to save him, because he's only on like Toughness 4 wounds. I guess Armor Indomitus makes him 5. But I really think with this Sanguinary Priest, you should be playing him. You should be playing him early in the game, turn 1, 2, and 3. You should be playing him in a situation where he's never going to get targeted and fought at. Later in the game, maybe if you want him to do some work, then give him Teeth of Terra. But if you don't give him Teeth of Terra, he can't fight anyone. With Teeth of Terra, he can actually fight pretty decent, because he's got that weapon skill of 2 and he gets like 8 attacks. But I think it's potentially a wasted relic to give him Armor Indomitus. I think I would. You give him Armor Indomitus, I guess, because 4 wounds feels pretty bad for the points, and you can't let him die. Yeah, okay, I get on board with that. I just think that the priest should be in the middle of a big squad of guys, more than 3, so that the enemy can never target him. If they're going to try and snipe him, then you leave him in an obscuring position. I think, yeah, I mean, Jack Harpster was, what did, do I have Jack Harpster's list here? I do. He runs the Sanguinary Priest with the Teeth of Terra. Okay, yes, so I prefer this build. So the Sanguinary Priest needs to be hidden in the middle of your units. He should never be able to be fought. Rezio saying he should have Icon of the Angel to help with charges. I like Icon of the Angel and Teeth of Terra more. I don't think the Sanguinary Priest should ever be in a position where he needs Armor Indomitus. I would put Armor Indomitus on the Chapter Master. He should be the one doing sacrifices and all that sort of stuff, and the Priest should be hidden. We then have Assault Intercessors and 2 Intercessor squads. It's fine, but Phobos units are better in general, so we're going to be taking a point off when we go to scoring because of this. I'll just score it now, actually. We're just going to score 7 on OBSEC because well, do you know what? We're going to score 8 because he's got Rights of War. You get plus 1 point back for Rights of War, but if there was a couple of Phobos here, he'd be scoring like 8.5 or 9. yeah, with teeth, I think he gets 8 attacks, right? I think I had Sanguinary Priest open another tab. Yeah, so he's got 3 attacks normally, so 4 for charging, 5 for Savage Echoes, and then 3 more for teeth. So he can get 8 attacks on Weapon Skill 2. And Teeth of Terra is +1 strength, so it's strength 5 -2, 2 damage, with the +1 to wound. I think the Sanguinary Priest is kind of impossible to keep alive with or without Armor Indomitus. I guess Armor Indomitus is kind of like a get out of jail free card. It's kind of like saying, I fucked up and I put him in the wrong position, so let me activate this 3-up save for 1 turn to hopefully he lives. That's how I feel about Armor Indomitus on the Priest. So I guess my thought is just don't fuck up. Just don't put him in a bad position and Armor Indomitus becomes worthless, and I prefer the other 2 builds. And I think Jack is probably arguably the best Blood Angels player, or I think at the moment probably in terms of raw tournament results, Jack is winning, or Jack is doing the best out of all the Blood Angels players worldwide. So I guess at the moment Jack is probably the best Blood Angels player in the world. So based on that, if that's what he's running, then I would kind of agree with him. Do you know what? Junior's probably won more tournaments than Jack, but they've been smaller tournaments, right? So yeah, Junior and Jack are probably do you know what? I did a video on one of Junior's lists. Let me see if I've still got it, and we'll see if Junior runs. Yeah, I think I've got his list. Junior first place at this GT. He does not run the Sanguinary Priest. Oh no, he does. He runs them with Icon of the Angel. Okay, so Reziel was right. The way that you should be running this is either Icon of the Angel or Teeth of Terra. Armor Indomitus is just saying I fucked up and put him in the wrong position. So that's my opinion on him. Buffing an unsurvivable model with a little extra resilience barely makes a lot of difference. Buffing an already survivable model, yeah. Excuse me. Okay, moving on. Bladeguard Veterans, as they come, 5-man, 175 points. Death Company, 5-man with 4 Thunderhammers, so we've seen this as a very punchy small Death Company. We have the regular Judiciar. I really think the Judiciar benefits a lot from Selfless Valor. I just talked about it in the last list we looked at. So I'd almost say like Selfless Valor is really, really important on the Judiciar. I think it's going to provide a lot of value throughout the game. We have the 1 Redemptor, Stormbolter, Macroplasma's Onslaught, and the Fist. We have a decent sized squad of Sanguinary Guard. This is a 7, all swords. We do not have Null Zone though, so I think a mix of swords and axes will be best. We then also have another squad of Sanguinary Guard, all swords, just a 4-man squad, and I'm undecided if I like the 4-man squad. Four Sanguinary Guard, I guess, are fine. I mean, they're still Sanguinary Guard, they still do a lot of damage. I guess you just have to be careful what you're charging with the 4 because they will bounce off some enemies. Attack Bike Squad, and it's 1 Attack Bike Squad of 3, which I guess makes sense because you've got the Sanguinary Priest. The problem I find now is people have figured this out, and what I mean by people have figured this out is like I just played against Dark Angels like 2 weeks ago now. I think it was actually my last game because we had a miss last Monday because I was moving, and I think the win streak is back, by the way, guys. I think I'm on a 6-win streak, so I think when I beat Tau tomorrow it'll be 7, and we're starting to streak up again on the channel. But people have figured out that if you have 3 attack bikes and a priest, what you have to do is you just have to focus fire everything into the bikes until they're dead, and then you get very little value out of the priest. And that's exactly what I did against Dark Angels. He had 2 squads of 3 attack bikes. In turn 1, I just shot everything into 1 squad that was in range, killed the entire squad of bikes, he got no value out of the priest. And then the second turn I did the same. So attack bikes, I would probably be... attack bikes, I feel like you probably need to be reserving them now. Yeah, I actually don't really know much about the Tau list. Reziel, I posted the Tau list into the members only room on Discord, so if you want to give me any advice, but I haven't fought Tau. I fought them once or twice in 9th edition, a bunch of war suits and stuff, so my targeted priority is not going to be as good as it should be, unless any of you guys can give me advice. So attack bikes, I think you probably need to reserve them. I like attack bikes in general. They do a lot of damage. The multi-metals are great, but they are difficult to run now because people have figured out how to deal with them and just shoot everything into them. So that's a concern. And then one squad of eliminators, and it looks like the main thing here is to get the quake bolts off, but he's taken the instigator bolt rifle. Sorry, the instigator bolt carbine, so that he can move, advance, and shoot, right? Shoot the quake bolts, even if he has to move accurately, which I guess makes sense. However, I guess the one thing to say is that we feel, I guess when I say we feel, on this channel we've talked a lot about it, and we feel that a squad of eliminators on their own don't do a whole load of work. So Instigator Bolt Carbine gives him that Assault 1 24 inches to get the Quake Bolts off. At that point, I guess I'd probably be trying to find 10 points to give the other two guys like the Las Fusils, because their two sniper rifles aren't going to do a whole heap of work. So I feel like the Las Fusils would be better. The one thing to say about this list as well, it has got 4 characters in it. Or, yeah, 4 characters. So it is giving up 13 points for Assassinate. So I like to try and make my list difficult for enemies to score against. And one of the things that makes it difficult is not having 4 characters, just have 3. And that makes Assassinate just a 10-point secondary against you. So that's something to consider. I for sure would try and get Phobos units into this list. I think Phobos units are very, very good. I would also switch the Priest's Relic, as mentioned. The 5-man Death Company with all Thunderhammers, I guess if they're coming in from Deep Strike near the Chaplain. And I guess this would be another reason to take Icon of the Angel and the Sanguinary Priest, so that the Chaplain casts Canticle of Hate, so you get that 7-inch charge and you make it re-rollable because of the Sanguinary Priest. You could also do that with the others, like the 4-man squad of Sanguinary Guard could join the battle from the edge of the board. I'd probably reserve the attack bikes because people have figured out that they need to wipe squads when playing against the priests. And I can't see an easy way to get the extra 10 points for these eliminators. Maybe I'd drop 1 Thunderhammer here, right? And if you drop 1 Thunderhammer and this 5-man Death Company just have 3 hammers, I'd put an Infernal Pistol into the Sanguinary Guard, and I'd pay the extra 10 points to get 2 Las Fusils on these eliminators. And that's kind of what I would do without changing the list too much. Quick tip on Dark Angels: the Raven with Apothecary has a metric ton of targets. If you kill some attack bikes, great, but that thing can heal other bikes and Terminators all day long. Yes, that's why I ended up shooting everything at the bikes. Well, one of the reasons, like, I wanted to shoot at the bikes anyway, because, you know, who likes to be shot by multi-meltas? Nobody. But yeah, no one likes to be shot by bikes anyways. And I knew that if I shot into the Terminators, although I would kill some Terminators, the Apothecary, who was the Selfless Healer, would bring a bunch of them back, so it felt like wasted firepower. So, okay, let's do a little bit of scoring on this list. Anti-Horde, well, we've got a very good amount of Angelus bolt guns. We also have Stormbolters on these attack bikes. We also have a Redemptor Dreadnought. I guess at the moment we got 2 squads of Intercessors with bolt rifles. I mean, they're okay. And then Eliminators can do a little bit of Anti-Horde. I guess Anti-Horde is maybe like a 7.5. How many 3 damage weapons we got? We've got these 3 multi-meltas. That's where we'll start. We've got the Redemptor adding 2. We've got the Judiciar bringing 1. We've got the 4 Thunderhammers here. And then we've got the Benediction of Fury and our Chapter Master with the Thunderhammer. Do you know what? I'd also probably drop the Storm Shield on the the captain on the bike. I feel like you get more value out of an Infernal Pistol. If you're running him with Angel's Artifice and or Armor Indomitus, he's already on a 2-up save. Does he really need to be on a 1-up save when he's toughness 5? Because typically the way that people can get wounds off your chapter masters, they chip him down with low AP firepower, but low AP firepower doesn't wound him when he's toughness 6 or he's toughness 5, right? Like, it wounds him when he's toughness 4, sure, but when he's toughness 5, he doesn't get wounded by low AP stuff. So I think on a 2+ save, he's fine. I don't think he needs a Storm Shield to make him on a 1-up save. I think you're better off running, especially if you've got Gift of Foresight, I think you're better off running either the Infernal Pistol and save yourself 5 points. But some people said you could run a Meltagun here, which I don't think's a bad choice either. But I prefer the Infernal Pistol because at the end of the game, my guy's always going to be in combat. So if I'm in combat, I can shoot you with my Infernal Pistol as well, and I can do some good damage out of that. And if you did change that Storm Shield out for an Infernal Pistol, then there's the 5 points you need for an Infernal Pistol in one of the bigger squads of the Sanguinary Guard. And if the Sanguinary Guard are next to the Warlord, of course, they hit on 2s rerolling 1s, which makes the Infernal Pistol pretty reliable. But yeah, Anti-Monster Vehicle is fine. Excuse me, probably like a 9? Yeah, I think a 9. Maybe even a 9.5. Yeah, let's go 9.5. Mobility overall is good. If these were full boss, your mobility would be a little bit better. Blade Guard veterans aren't super mobile, and neither is the Dreadnought or the Judici, but they don't have to be. Eliminators, because you gave them that instigator, they're pretty mobile. So maybe like a 8.5. Do you know what? Maybe an 8, because you do all your troops. You needed. I feel like you needed to have some full boss troops to get that 8.5, and then we have no way to fight last in this list. Oh, sorry, we do have the way to fight last, but it's the Judici without Selfless Valor, and I think Selfless Valor is very important if you want the Judici to work properly, because otherwise the enemy can use movement to prevent you doing that. So maybe just like a half point off for that. You don't have any denies, so maybe another point off for that. You do have the 3 units for actions, but they could be better if they're full boss. You have the 3 damage weapons, which is pretty good, and then you've got 6 CP, which is kind of lower. I mean, I kind of have 6 CP as well, so I'd say that you get like an 8 from that. If we added an Infernal Pistol instead, yes. I'm sorry. I don't get why you don't like my Infernal Pistol and my Chapter Master. The amount of people that he has killed, I need to start a running total. Actually, Mark, we need a volunteer to watch every single battle report that I have on the channel. There's not that many, honestly. Let's have a look. I have a playlist of battle reports. How do you get it? Playlists. Battle reports, here we go. Oh, those are the pre-film battle reports that I've done, not like live battles. Oh yeah. Shut up, John. Where are the live battles? Are they on this page? Live battles. So we get 12 battle reports and we have 26 live battles. So there's 38 battle reports on this channel. On average, they're about 4 hours. So that is 38 times 4. That'll be hours divided by 24. So it's about 6.25 days. Let's say 6.5 days. So someone I need a volunteer to watch 6.5 days of battle reports and work out how many characters that the Infernal Pistol has assassinated. Or we start a new total now. Every time we get a kill with that Infernal Pistol on the Chapter Master, we note it down. Yeah. Okay. So Holy and Dirty Splodge come up with the same sort of point score. I think this list was strong like 6 months ago. Now I think that it's just a little. It feels like what I was playing 6 months ago, right? It just feels a little bit dated, right? Like attack bikes in the Sanguinary Priest. I think too many people know how to counter them now, and they were very strong for a while, but like they just get countered pretty hard now. And I really think you have to reserve the attack bikes. I've changed, so I run my attack bikes now as individual bikes, not in a big squad, because I don't run the priest, so there's no advantage for me to have them in a big squad. And I always reserve them, so I'm always bringing them in from reserve and picking key targets. And I think that's actually very versatile. Like, it's 60 points to bring in a multi-melta wherever you need it. The multi-melta is probably going to, you get 2 shots. On a little bit of luck, you're going to make both hits, and then it's, it can do a lot of damage, and usually you always make at least 1 hit, right? So it's like, I like the attack bikes as individuals and bring them in from reserve. And the great thing about bringing them in from reserve is sometimes you can bring them in within that half range, and if you do that, then you get the +2 damage. Can we have a channel in Discord for different counters? I don't know if we can do that, but maybe. So I'm looking at the tile list. Seems janky to me. He's Shadow Sun and a Storm Surge, not even using Farsight Enclave. Won't be that hard to beat, except for the Riptides being annoying. Yeah, Riptides are pretty annoying, right? They're the ones that have those indirect missiles. Every time the Infernal Pistol assassinates someone, each time a whirlwind kills a unit, each time an adamantium mantle saves a character with 1 wound. Yeah, it would be interesting to know how many, because that has happened so many times actually. And also, I also would like to know how many times people have put a ton of attacks, or they've split attacks, into the Chapter Master. They've been like 5 attacks on the Chapter Master, blah 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 blah. Then it's like, oh, the Chapter Master took no damage. And I was like, yeah, that happens quite often as well. Okay, let's move on to list number... The last list for today, list number 5, Jordan. Hey Commander, long time viewer, and I finally feel confident enough to submit a list for you to view. Thank you for all the work you've done for this community. I know you've learned a lot from all your videos and always look forward to seeing them every week. With this list I normally take Oath of Moment and Retrieve Victorious Data, but sometimes I struggle with my third pick, so it would be great if you had any suggestions. Thank you. Alright, great Jordan, thanks for the very nice comment, that's very kind of you. Let me get into this. So it's a patrol detachment first, and we've got 10 CP out of the patrol detachment. We have our captain on a bike, who is Artisan of War, Gift of Foresight, Adamantium Mantle, Chapter Master, Infernal Pistol, Artisan of War, Thunderhammer, and Warlord. And I just want to say that this guy, Jordan, he knows what he's talking about. Like, look at this Chapter Master. Like, could you build a Chapter Master any stronger than this? I don't think you could. Great job on that, Jordan. I love it. We then have the Librarian with Null Zone and Psychic Fortress, and unfortunately, Jordan, I'm going to make... Maybe that needs to be this week. I've got a few videos that I want to work on coming up, and one of them is definitely Librarian with Null Zone and how you make him the most effective you can make him. And I think that is with the Chief Librarian upgrade and the Psychic Mastery upgrade. Chapter Master on a bike meme. Yeah, pretty much. Okay, Infiltrator Squads times 2, and I think straight away you could probably get away with 1 Infiltrator Squad, 1 Incursor Squad. Incursors are better in close combat. They also have the reserved positions, concealed positions, sorry, and they're going to save you 15 points. So if we talk about the Librarian being the best he can be, if he's a Chief Librarian, well, we've got 15 points towards the 25 we need to upgrade him. So far, let's keep moving on. That's all he's got in that detachment. Okay, that's fine. The second detachment is the Vanguard detachment. This is going to cost him 5 CP. He's got the Primaris Chaplain on the bike. He's taken a Litany of Faith, so we've got Mortal Wound Protection, I like it. We have the Mantra of Strength, and we also have Benediction of Fury, and we are the Wise Orator, so our litanies are casting on 2s, and they're reliable. If you take Null Zone tomorrow, the Riptides are as dead gets. Yeah, I'm going to throw together my list right after this, because I need to I actually don't know when I need to submit my list for this next Grand Tournament, but I kind of have it in my head. So I'm going to make it right after after we've reviewed Jordan's list. I'm going to make my list for the Grand Tournament. It might not be what I run tomorrow, but I'm going to have Null Zone in it, I think, for sure. We then have our Sanguinary Priest, who is the Chief Apothecary. And he's got the Selfless Healer, of course he does. Cool. We then have Blade Guard Veterans, and it's 140 points for 4 of them this time. The 2 Redemptors, one with Fragstorm, Rocket Pods, Macros, and Onslaught, the other with... one with Stormbolters, one with Fragstorms, all the bells and whistles, Icarus Rocket Pods, the Macro Plasmas, and the Onslaughts. Again, Stormbolters, in my opinion, are just the better choice here. The Fragstorm launchers either end up being out of range, or they don't always get the number of shots you want, so Stormbolters just seem more reliable. Stab myself with a needle while cleaning the glue tube nozzle. Is it one of these sort of nozzles that you're trying to clean? Because I have a hack that will fix this in about 5 seconds flat if the nozzle is blocked. These little metal ones that come out, Mark. And once I tell you the hack, you will forever be in my debt. Anyway, Sanguinary Guard, 4 with swords and bolters, 3 with bolters and axes, and then 1 axe and infernal pistol. No, it's not one of those metal nozzles. If it is a metal nozzle, all you need to do is put it over your gas. Well, you can do it with a lighter, or you can do it with your gas cooker. Just put the cooker on, run it over the metal nozzle for about 2 seconds, and it'll melt all the glue inside it, and it'll just clean it in 2 seconds flat. It's so handy. We then have a Vanguard Veteran Squad, all with jump packs. Infernal Pistol and Thunderhammer on the Sergeant, Lightning Claws and Storm Shields on 3, Thunderhammer and Storm Shield on 1. So I kind of like that loadout. That's kind of how I ran it. With you want to have the 2 Thunderhammers, and then you want to have a bunch of Lightning Claws, candles as well. Yeah, any sort of flame, I guess, over those metal nozzles will clean it out very, very quickly. So 5 Vanguard Veterans for 168 points is fine. My problem with 5 Vanguard Veterans, and I think my problem with Vanguard Veterans in general, is yes, they have a 4-up and 1 save, but in a meta where there's a lot of 2 damage weapons, they can die very quickly. And I guess this is why Blade Guard Veterans, I think, always provide value in games. And I think this is why my Terminators provide value in games, because 2 wound guys can die very quickly now. So there's nothing wrong with Vanguard Veterans. There's certainly nothing wrong with a 5-man squad all with Storm Shields. But I think more and more now, the meta seems to be leaning towards people running 10-man squads of Vanguard Veterans. But I mean, this is a fine pick. If you've got those 2 Redemptors, you've got the Blade Guard, the Sanguinary Guard, and the Van Vets. This is pretty much the core of my tournament list that I ran recently, and it is very good. It's hard to argue with it. I think you just need to be aware that 5-man vets, and again, this comes back to people running up against the priest. If they're running up against an army that they know have the priest, they generally would just focus down the smallest units first, and that's what I noticed. And if you have a 5-man squad of Vanguard Veterans, they're just getting peppered with all sorts of manner of fire. They are just toughness 4. They do die fairly quickly. Yep, and then we've got our 2 attack bikes, and these are 120 points. And I guess this comes back to my last question, where, like I said, I like the attack bikes to be 2 separate units, so we can bring them on from reserve in different parts of the board and pick off key targets. But I guess by running the priest, you kind of want them together, so if one of them dies, you can revive them. But like I said, a lot of people have figured that out, so that's something to be aware of. And then you've got the Whirlwind for your fight last. So I think overall, again, it's a pretty solid list. again, this reminds me very much of the list I was playing 6 months ago. You know, the 4 characters, the priest, the chaplain, the bike and the librarian, the 2 squads of infiltrators. I mean, this is almost a carbon copy of what I was playing 6 months ago on the channel. I think maybe the only difference would have been like, I feel like I had 1 more attack bike, and maybe... Yeah, do you know what? Maybe I just had 1 more attack bike because chapter approved hadn't come out and put all of our points cost up. So yeah, I think apart from that, this is pretty much carbon copy of my list from 6 months ago. And overall, this list is fine. I do think you would be better off taking 1 squad of incursors. It gives you 15 points. I'm not sure what you could do with that 15 points. You'd probably need to drop a Thunderhammer. If you drop a Thunderhammer and change it into Lightning Claw, that gives you 9 points, plus the 15 we got earlier, that's 24. So you just need to find 1 more point. Oh, and you've got some points free, right? Yeah, you've got 1 more point. Perfect. So I would drop 1 Thunderhammer, put in a Lightning Claw. I would swap out infiltrators for incursors, make this the chief librarian. Your next power can be... You've got a couple of choices with your other power. The one, Veil of Time, to give one of your units reroll charges, I believe. I actually don't use Veil of Time myself, but I know that a lot of people like it. Veil of Time, you can reroll charge rolls and you fight first, I guess, until the start of your next psychic phase, which is pretty cool. I like to run... If you're running the double Redemptors, I like to run Might of Heroes to give one of your Redemptors +1 toughness, +1 strength, +1 attack. But that doesn't just need to go on Redemptors, it is coring characters. So, you know, if the enemy are picking on one of your characters, you can give him +1 toughness. If you also think, I'm definitely going to make that charge next turn with my chaplain, so it would be good if my chaplain had +1 attack, because he's going to get another +1 attack from Mantra of Strength. So we're going to do some mortals from Benediction of Fury. You get value out of that too. Alright, let's talk a little bit about scoring this list. So OBSEC wise, we've got the 2 squads of infiltrators, so I'd say it's like a 7.5. Anti-Horde, we've got those 2 Redemptors, we've got a decent sized Sanguinary Guard, we've got the Whirlwind, we've got attack bikes. Anti-Horde is not so bad, I think. I mean, it's not brilliant. Maybe like maybe an 8. Yeah, let's go with an 8. 3 damage weapons then. We've got our Chapter Master on the bike to have 2. We've got our Librarian with a sword to have 1. Or 4 staff. I would change that to the 4 sword. The sword is just better than the staff as well. I missed that. The 4 staff is like... it's just kind of poor in terms of AP, right? 4 staff is... Yes, you're hitting at strength 7, but you're just -1 AP, whereas the sword, you're still hitting at strength 5 with +1 to wound and -3 AP. I think the sword is a much better choice for a Blood Angel player. I mean, against against T4 models, you're wounding them with 2s with the sword. Tier 5 models, you're wounding them with 3s, and the -3 AP makes it pretty difficult for people to save. Sorry, I got sidetracked. So that's 3 damage weapons. We've got the... Benediction of Fury, so that's 4. We've got the 2 Redemptors giving us 8. We have an Infernal Pistol here giving us 9. We have 2 Thunderhammers here giving us 11. We have 2 Multi-Metallists. So we've got 13 3 damage or above weapons. I think that the anti-monster here is about a 9.5 as it currently stands. Mobility wise in this list is pretty great. The only non-mobile things are the Blade Guard veterans. The incursors and that can redeploy, and the Whirlwind. So it's probably the most mobile list we've seen today. So I think it would be a 9. And then specialization, what have we got? We've got the ability to fight last. We have 1 deny, but it could be improved if you made the tweaks that I said to 2 denies. We do have 2 units from actions, so slightly lower than some of the other lists we looked at today. 13 3 damage weapons, and then like 6 CP, 5 CP here. so kind of lower in CP, and especially if you're going to reserve those attack bikes. So maybe like an 8 for specialization seems about right. So I think that's pretty much it. I like the company veteran squad and 3 attack bikes. It's only 9 power level, so 1 CP to reserve. Yeah, I run company veterans and just 2 attack bikes, but I guess that's just a sort of a points thing where I don't have the points to get the other attack bike in Highland Phoenix. But I think that is a good, it's a good unit to reserve, or it's a good thing to reserve. It gives you quite a lot of versatility. 2 attack bikes coming in with the multi-meltas, and the company veterans coming in to perform actions. I like it a lot, in fact. And it definitely scored me a lot of points in recent games. Okay, that is the 5 lists for today. I think James Fisher's list was slightly stronger. I think James has watched the channel for a while, though, and knows my scoring criteria, because he covered everything for specialization really, really well. But nonetheless, congrats, James. Is a cool list. I think I'm going to make my list for this tournament now. I think I'll just do it here on stream. Maybe I'll make a separate video about it later. I can't decide. But I think it was interesting to see nobody took Soul Warden in today's lists. We had one chaplain that took Litany of Faith, and he was the Wiserator. So we had one player taking Protection Against Mortal Wounds, but just one. And I think Protection Against Mortals is... I think as the meta changes, it seems like every new codex is just shitting out mortal wounds, right? And being able to protect against those mortal wounds, it's pretty useful. Especially, like, I guess a bunch of lists today had the Sanguinary Priest. And the Sanguinary Priest does, to a certain extent, protect against mortals. But I just find... I think there's a big difference between Shrugs on 5 and Shrugs on 6s. Shrugs on 6s feels like you could roll 10 dice and get 0 6s, right? Whereas, like, Shrugs on 5 sometimes feels like you could roll 10 dice and save 8 of them or something. Like, there's a huge difference between Shrugs on 5s and Shrugs on 6s. And yes, there's luck involved and stuff like that. And statistically, it's only 16% better chance. Like, if you have a Shrug on a 6, it's 1 in 6, or 16.67%. If you have a Shrug on 5, it's 1 in 3, so 33.33 repeating, of course, chance. But I think it's just on the table. You never have a roll. Like, if you roll 10 dice, how many times are you going to have to roll that 10 dice to get, let's say, 8 6s? Like, an absolute shitload of times. How many times are you going to have to roll that 10 dice to get 8 5s? Or 5s plus, right? 5s or 6s. I feel like quite a lot, but, like, it could happen pretty quickly. Like, I've definitely seen Andrew, like, Andrew is like, his nickname on the channel is Dodgy Dice. Andrew just typically I don't know why Andrew doesn't win more games, because he rolls really, really good numbers, like, a lot of the time. So yeah, it's definitely something to think about, I guess. If you're not in a position to be taking mortal wounds, aren't you screwed with a 5+ or not? I only have experience against Thousand Suns, and any exposed unit seems to die either way. Yeah, but I mean, it can make a big difference. Like, I played against Thousand Suns where they did like 17 mortal wounds against me in a turn. If I had no way to shrug them, I just have to take all 17 of them. That's horrific. If I can shrug them on 5s and get a little bit of luck, I can potentially ignore like half of them. Considering future Conex, Gene Sealer's Cults and Custodes in December won't have lots of mortal wound output, but Chaos and Elder in the new year absolutely will. The mortal wound meta is here to stay for a while. It'll be a tale of the haves and have-nots. Yes, I think that. I think the mortal wound meta is here to stay for a while, and if you can protect yourself against it, I I think it's something that's totally worth doing. I am getting texted from my wife. I am going to have to go, actually. So, Tau tomorrow night. I might have... well, I've got 2 tournaments coming up, so I'm going to run one of the 2 tournament lists, 100%. That's definitely going to happen. So tune in tomorrow night to see one of my 2 tournament lists. And... we'll be live from about 7:30, so like an hour and 45 minutes from now, give or take, tomorrow night. And it'll be good if a bunch of you guys are here. I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, let me just tell you what's actually up, because I know where's the live battle reports, right? So 2 weeks ago we beat Dark Angels. The week before that, we beat Sisters. The week before that, we beat Brett's Orcs. The week before that, we beat Andrew's Buggies. The week before that, we beat Necrons. And then the week before that, we beat Andrew's Sisters again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so we've won 6 games in a row. We lost against the Snakebite Orcs, but like honestly, I'd never played them before. And they're only wounding them on 4-ups is pretty rough. And I think this battle would have probably been the week... This was streamed on the 30th of August, so this was the week before I went to the tournament. So... And at the tournament I went 4 for 1. So I've won 9 out of my last 10, and I'm on a 6-game winning streak. So I feel like I'm in a pretty good position, I guess. I mean... I kind of need to probably thank a bunch of you guys in the chat, and one of the things that came out from the stuff that we were saying was like, when you find something that starts winning games, and like I guess I've got like a core of the list with those double redemptors and the Tech Marine with the Soul Warden, as sort of like a core, and also I guess the Chief Librarian with Null Zone. Those 4 models in sort of like a tight pack, surviving and dealing damage throughout the game as a core, develop your game strategy around that, because I guess I've managed to do that now to a point where like, yeah, I've won 9 out of the last 10 games. I feel like hopefully I'm going to keep winning, but yeah, there are some tough armies to come up against. Admech, Knights, and Dukari again. I'm sure I'm going to fight Dukari at this tournament. I'm still trying to get someone to come play me on the channel with the Dukari army. It's something that I'm working on, so hopefully soon. But we haven't seen Tau in a while, so that'll be fun. And yeah, thanks very much for the kind words, and hopefully see a bunch of you guys tomorrow night. I'll probably be in Discord later tonight, so if you want to chat about anything about the Tau lists and stuff, that'd be cool too. Have a really awesome rest of your Sunday. And I guess everything for the channel should be back up and running as normal. So, we're all moved into this new house. Everything seems sweet right now. So I don't want to jinx anything, but we should be able to get back to a couple of streams this week, and hopefully a couple of interesting hobby videos, and maybe even a short as well. I haven't made a short in a little while, so some new videos coming for sure, guys. As always, by the blood are we made strong. Peace.
Bye.